Shalom, welcome everybody. This is Parashat Nasso. We're reading through mostly chapter 6 of the book of Numbers. Parashat Nasso has a lot of content in it. It's got um, the wayward wife, the Nazarite vow. It also has all of these donations from all the tribes. It has the responsibilities of the sons of the Levite priests, the Gershon's responsibilities, Merari's. I think we're going to skip to chapter 6, though, which is mostly the Nazarite vow. And then at the end of chapter 6 is the famed Aaronic blessing. So let's jump right into it. If anyone wants to raise their hand to read or annotate on the screen, here's how you do it. I'm going to jump forward to, I think it's slide, where is it? 60, right here. All right. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. That's the easy part. And the Lord spoke to Moses saying, and who would like to read the next verse? What did God say? Go ahead, Eileen.
Dabar al Bnei Yisrael Yometo. No.
Ve'amarta
Vemarta
alehem.
Alehem
Mhm.
Ish Avo
It's O.
Isha or
Ish or
Isha
Isha.
Isha
Yeah.
Isha
Yeah.
Ki Ipelea
Yafli.
Yafli Lean de R
Lindor.
Lindor and no and the R
Neder.
Neder Natsir
Nazir.
Lehanetz
Lehazir.
Leatzir Leadonai
Adonai. Good. Daber el bnei Yisrael ve'amarta alehem ish o isha ki yafli lindor neder nazir lehazir laadonai. All right, like I said, this is the beginning of Numbers chapter 6, talking about the Nazarite vow. And God is speaking to Moses, and he tells Moses, speak to the sons of Israel, a man or a woman who wants to separate him or herself with a vow. Now we've got this and this. They're both from the same root. What's the root? It's right there. Nun Dalet.
Nun Dalet Resh.
So a neder is a vow. We can tell that it's a noun because of that pattern. And then over here is the verb as an infinitive construct, to do something. So literally it's to vow a vow. To vow a vow. Whoever wants to vow a vow. And this is the kind of vow. It's a nazir, and this is precisely where we get the word for Nazarite. This is not the same root as the word Nazareth. Nazareth comes from Natseret, which is a tzadi, and Nazir is from a zayin. They're two different letters in Hebrew. Some people get them confused back and forth. They're ooh.
I always thought it came from Nazareth. That's interesting.
So the word Nazareth comes from netzer, which means branch, or like an offshoot, something to preserve the offspring of David.
Yeah.
And this netzer we can find in the prophet, probably the prophetic books. And so when Matthew, what is it? Matthew 6:23. No, it's not. What is it? Matthew 2:23. I can't remember now. Talks about he was from Nazareth to fulfill the scriptures that he shall be called a Nazarene. Anybody familiar with that passage? There's one problem, right? There isn't anywhere in the scriptures where it prophesies that Messiah is going to be a Nazarene. There is an interesting, I don't know if I've shared it with you guys before, but I'm going to share it here. And there's an interesting theory that I want to share with you. Where are you? Let me look for it in here. Did I misspell it? Oh, come on. Where are you? Oh, that's why. I've got a lot of stuff here. I should find it. Here it is. 223. Biesenthal on Matthew 223. Okay, so Dr. Biesenthal and Joachim Biesenthal what was it, 1800s, was a messianic rabbi who had a theory about what this Matthew 223 passage could be talking about. Where is it? Right here. Right. Okay, here's essentially the core of his argument. He's wondering that if the Greek that is in Matthew 2:23, let me just share that real quick, I suppose. Matthew 2:23. Oh, helps if I type it in English.
There it is.
All right, I know we're studying Hebrew right now, but Hebrew came later on as a translation. Like, see right here, he's from the city of Netzaret is how it shows up in here, but it's Netzeret. It just shows up like this in pausal form, because Notzri Yikarelo, he will be called a Notzri, which is interesting because in modern Hebrew, Notzrim are Christians. Really funny. He would be called a Notzri. But in the Greek, let me just show you quickly. Where is it? Here he is. He's from Nazareth because the prophets say he would be called a Nazoraios. Nazoraios. And it's like, well, what does that mean? Is he going to be a Nazarite? Or is he going to be called a what is that supposed to mean? And as you saw in the in my English version, my literal version, it marks whatever the Old Testament passage was that this is prophesying, and there happens to be none. Oh my goodness, what are we going to do? Okay, so now fast forward over to Dr. Biesenthal. He says, wait a second, people were speaking Aramaic in the first century, and he's wondering whether the root, the Semitic root behind the Greek word that you see, whether it was tsa'ar, which has to do with pain and suffering. So putting it into a nifal, it becomes natsri, which is one who is laden with pain and suffering. Is there anywhere in the Old Testament where that shows up? Yes. So rather than trying to call him a Nazarene or something like that, he goes on talking about how, especially in the Syriac dialect, which is, just north of where Jesus and the disciples came from, they spoke with an accent that had longer O sounds than they do ah sounds. So therefore, he argues that the pronunciation would be Nazorai or Natsori or something like that, Natsori. And therefore, you get an O sound in the Greek. Interesting, but it's probably not a Nazarite vow, even though there does appear to be a place in the New Testament where Jesus, Yeshua, makes a Nazarite vow. Does anybody know where it is?
Well, I got a question for you real fast. It kind of has a problem with that first miracle that we turned some water into wine.
Right. So he couldn't be a Nazarite because he obviously drank wine.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
sorry. I just observation.
Totally my point. There's no way that this passage in
Okay,
Matthew
sorry.
2:23 could be talking about a Nazarite vow. So therefore, Dr. Biesenthal comes in and says, well, no, what if it's coming from an Aramaic word, which means one who is suffering, one who suffers, one laden with sorrow and suffering. And therefore, you have multiple Old Testament passages prophesying it, and you don't have to worry about Jesus being a Nazarite. But it does sound like he made a Nazarite vow when he says, I will not drink of this fruit of the vine until I see you again in the kingdom. That's all it takes to make a Nazarite vow.
Oh, wow.
I mean, rabbinically speaking, that's all it takes to make a Nazarite vow. So it's possible that even this section of the Bible that's talking about a Nazarite vow is currently being applied to Yeshua. All right.
Can I give you my take on it?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's coming from when they speak of the prophets. I think he's talking about Isaiah, and the netzer is used in the position of a branch. And the branch prophetically is the code word for Messiah. So I think it's coming from netzer in Isaiah. A shoot will come up from the stump of Jesse, from his roots a branch, netzer, will bear fruit. Isaiah 11:1.
Isaiah 11:1.
A sprout or a plant. So netzer is a code word for Messiah.
Yeah, you can see in this particular translation, they capitalize the letter S. Let's see, here it is. Oh, here it is. So the shoot would be the choter, choter. That's this. And the netzer would be the branch. And this translation capitalizes both. I wonder if there are any other places where it shows up. Like a despised branch. Water. Oh, no. It would have to be here. Let me click on this and see where it shows up in the Bible. Ah, shows up 4 times, 3 times in Isaiah and once in Daniel. Throne. And, oh, don't do that. What did I do? That one. Branch of my planting, the work of my hands, beautify. And then in Daniel, there it is, netzer. Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, Isaiah 11:1 is that messianic netzer.
Isaiah actually codes the actual name Yeshua Christos in 9 and 11, but I'm going to show you that next week because it's it's encoded in gematria, and which is an entirely different subject than we're talking about. But
All right.
because he codes it in gematria in the Greek letters, and it's
In
every
the-
seventh letter.
In the Septuagint of Isaiah, or in the Greek of Isaiah?
No. So he's speaking Hebrew, but then it's equidistant linear every 7 letters. So
Yeah,
it's every
equidistant
7 letters
spacing,
that
EDS.
are coded from Hebrew into Greek. That's why I'll do it next week. I'll show it to
Okay.
you.
All right.
It's
What
too
is the
complicated.
root? What is the root of lihazir?
Dedicate.
Hey, Sadi Yod.
The hay is a hefil. There's a strong dagesh, so something's missing. Zayin resh. The noon is missing. It's the same root as a nazir. So whoever wants to make a vow of a nazir in order to dedicate themselves. So what does the word nazir mean? One who is either dedicated or to be dedicated. You can see that the word Nazarite is simply a transliteration of the Hebrew. It doesn't really tell us anything about the Nazarite himself.
Right.
Here we can see the verb where it does tell us something about it. So a Nazarite is someone who is dedicated for a specific purpose. All right, who wants to read the next verse? Okay, I'll read it. Miyayin v'shechar yazir. Oop, there's that word again. Chometz yayin v'chometz shechar lo yishte v'chol mishrat anavim lo yishte v'anavim lachim viveshim lo yochel. All right, so here are the basic ground rules for Nazarite. From wine, miyayin, and strong drink. Veshechar. Yazir, he shall separate. He shall be essentially distant from. How do we know? Because you keep reading and he says that the vinegar of wine, the vinegar of strong drink, he shall not drink. Or any liquor of grapes, it calls it, neither shall he drink. And moist grapes, that's like fresh grapes, and dried, he shall not eat. So anything related to the fruit of the vine and the strong drink that comes with it or comes from it. All right, who wants to read this one?
Okay, I'll give it a shot again.
Okay.
Al Yom and Netzir. All ha hasher yi sheha yisheha
Ye'aseh
yihase em gape
migefen
migefen ha yi o
hayayin.
hayayin mehatse neim
Mechaltzanim
mehatsaim va'ir no
va'ad
ve'at bad. N- Thick,
Zag.
sag, all, ye, gol,
Lo yochel.
yohel.
Kol yemei nizro mikol asher ye'aseh migefen hayayin mechaltzanim ועד זג לא יאכל. all of, ימי, the days of, nizro. So apparently here it's something like nezer, having to do with separation, but it belongs to him, his separation. This is a 3-word construct chain. All of, the days of, his separation. Mikol, from all, asher ye'aseh. This is, what binyan is this verb? Ye'aseh.
He feel,
Oh,
It's not he feel, because he feel you would expect a patach to show up right here.
uo,
Pual, it would, let's see, pual would need to have an oo vowel in it.
Simple call.
It's not kal either, because then you would expect a chirik to be here. How about the translation? Does that help you?
it's a passive of some sort.
Passive of some sort. So therefore, what do we have? 3 passives. There are 3 passive binyanim.
ALPL and
he
is
feel,
that right?
The passives are going to be nif'al, hu'al, and huf'al.
hoofal. It's a
Okay.
hoofal.
If it's a huf'al, then there should be an oo vowel right there. If it's a pu'al, then there should be an oo vowel right there. And if it's a nifal, there should be a chirik there and a dagesh here.
Then it's a pool.
Well, none of these fit precisely, right? But which one comes the closest? It's actually nifal. So you can't put a chirik here and a dagesh here, because gutturals don't take a dagesh.
Right.
So to
They're not very good friends, are they?
No, they're dagesh intolerant. So if we can't
Okay.
double the ayin, then we lengthen the vowel and it becomes ye'aseh instead of ye'aseh. The Yiktol Yod here says that he, 3ms, is the subject. So here it says anything that is made. So kol is 3ms, so the verb is 3ms. Everything that is made, migefen hayayin, from the, I wouldn't really call that tree. A geffen is a vine.
Mhm.
So the vine bush of wine. Yeah. Chaltzanim, the seeds, and even the husk or the peel of the grapes you can't eat either. Wow. Lo yochel. What binyan is this one?
Awful?
There's an O vowel right there that might make you want to think of hufal or hofal.
It's
I
not,
agree.
it's not a passive.
It's not passive. Exactly. This is a one of those very highly irregular verbs that belong to a group called Pei Aleph. There are only 6 verbs that do this, where they get an O vowel. One of them is vayomer. Another is vayoch. Another one is yochel. Another one is ofe, to bake. Another one is oved, to perish. So this is actually a kal binyan. Simple call. The only
A
difference
simple
is that,
call.
well,
Mhm.
it's call, but it may not be as simple because of that O vowel showing up unexpectedly.
Oh, okay.
We would have expected a chirik here and a shva there, but Aleph isn't going to take a shva, is it? But why does it show up as an O? That's a good question. I'm not sure anyone has a good answer for that.
Mm.
Yochel, he shall eat. Or actually, lo yochel, he shall not eat. All right, would anyone else like to read?
I could try.
Go ahead, Diva.
Kol yel mir ne mi. Sorry, let me start over. Kol yel mi me ne neder nistro ta'ar. Oh, ta'ar. Is that a tav? Can't see.
It is.
Yeah.
This right here is
Okay,
a
sorry.
tav.
Sorry. I'm not used to the
It's okay.
type. Lo ia al vor al bro show ad melo hay ya yo hayomin a share assure ya zo ya ya zu
There's actually the
oh
vowel
sorry I
is right
can't see
here.
it. Oh there is the
Mhm.
here I'm sorry. Yeah yeah the the
Yazir,
Yazir la Adonai Kod Kodosh.
not quite. The ah comes
Oh,
first.
oh, oh. Kadosh,
Kadosh,
Kadosh. Ye, ye, ye.
yeah.
How do you say?
Yih,
Yehe,
ye, yih,
ye,
ye.
ye. Oh, ye, ye,
Yeah,
ye,
it would
ye,
it would be yih,
ye,
ye.
ye,
And
ye.
the hey at the end is a vowel letter, so it's not an H sound, but that one is an
Oh,
H sound. Yih, ye, yih,
ye,
ye.
yehe.
Do you know how people in Israel pronounce this today? Ye,
Now how? Ye,
ye, ye, ye, ye.
ye, ye, ye,
So I
ye.
mean, it's the hey is completely lost. Ye, ye.
Oh,
Mm.
and then Godel,
Gadel.
Godel, per, per, I can't say that. Petach, para. Oh, para,
That's a
pera.
patach right there.
It's a
Pera.
petach. Okay. Show ar. Oh, no, so ar.
Sa'ar.
Se ar.
Last word.
Rosh. Rosho.
Oh.
Oh, very good. Kol
Nice.
Sorry.
yemei.
Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Kol
Let
yemei
me try.
neder nizro. That's the same way that the previous verse started. Ta'ar lo ya'avor al rosho ad melot hayamim asher yazir ladonai kadosh yihye gadel pera sa'ar rosho.
Mm.
All right. All of the days of the vow of his separation. So here we get a 4-word construct chain. Ta'ar, not a very common word. Lo ya'avor. What binyan is ya'avor?
Future tense?
Can I go through these and by the process of elimination land on
Sure.
one? Do you mind?
Sure.
I'm using your Benjamin diagnostic clues, and since I'm still learning the Benjamin, I'd like to go through the cheat sheet.
The
So
binyan The Binyanim cheat sheet, if anyone doesn't have it, is, I'll tell you what, I'll drop it in the chat. It's right here. What is it? This one? There it is. Got it. Hello, chat. Where's the chat? Ah, there it is.
There it is.
Make it a little bit bigger here so we can see the whole thing. All right, so the question on the table is this word. I'll scribble it down here, I guess. Ya'avo. Ya'avo. All right.
Hmm.
So where do we begin, Tim?
Okay, to pass over, pass through, right?
Okay, yeah, that's
So-
correct.
It's not a state of being. It reflexive or reciprocal. I'm sorry, I got to take you back to the beginning. What is the difference between reflexive and reciprocal?
Good question. Reflexive is when someone does something to himself, and reciprocal is when more than one person does something with another person, with each other. So if I hug you, well, you're hugging me back. We're doing it to each other. That's reciprocal. If I'm
Okay.
corresponding with you, same thing. You're writing to me, I'm writing to you. That's reciprocal. Reflexive
Okay,
is
so-
when you do it to yourself, like I comb my hair or wash myself or something like that.
So the term on the table is to pass over, pass through. So I don't see that as reflective or reciprocal.
Very good.
I don't see it as inducing a state of being.
Correct.
It could be passive.
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
No,
Why would you,
think it's
what would you, what's your evidence for it being passive?
no? I'm just saying it could be passive,
Oh, it hasn't been ruled out yet?
right?
Okay.
So I'm going to drop down to reflexive or reciprocal as a hit payout. But so once again, I rule that out.
Okay.
Causative, active. Causative active is a possibility.
All right. So these are
Or
the
causative
seven,
passive.
these are the seven binyanim, right? Pa'al, nifal, pi'el, pu'al, hitpa'el, hifil, hufal. Now, what you're reading is a brief description of the binyan that I've provided just to help understand what the general idea of the binyan is. So I don't want to say most, I don't know, maybe most of the verbs that we learn are going to be either called pa'al or they're called kal. It means the same thing. Nifal is the passive of kal. Sometimes it can also be reflexive or reciprocal. We know that's not the case. We know it's not a state of being. PL is usually a more intensive action, or it can induce a state of being. If I am thirsty, that's a state of being. If I make somebody thirsty, I would use the PL. It's a silly verb. I don't know who can actually do that. Be thirsty. But the point, but the point is that if you can cause something to be a certain state of being, like full, right? That jar is empty. It is full is a state of being, but if I fill it, then that would be a PL using that root of being full. So it's probably not that one right there. It's not a passive. It's not a reflexive, not a passive. Okay, so basically we're looking for either this, or this just based on the definition. But that's not the best way to use this chart. The best way to use the chart is to look for the pattern of the word. The first thing I would note is that there's a yiktol prefix letter at the front of it. Now that can be a little frustrating because sometimes we'll get a root that has a yiktol prefix letter, even though it's not a yiktol prefix, like yashav. Wait, yashav means he sat, not he will sit, right? Tricked you. That's part of the root. It's not a prefix. But here we have 4 letters to play with. So that must be my root, and this must be my prefix. All right, so that means we can narrow it down to somewhere in this column.
Hifil.
Okay, let's have a look at the Hifil. The Hifil has a patach right there. Oh, look, ours has a patach. It also has a chirik yod right there. Oh. That didn't work. All right, next thing I would point out, is there anything frustrating about this root? Any odd or troublesome letters in this root?
I suppose they're iron.
Ayin. Ayin.
So I
Iron.
think it's
Guttural.
probably Yictol.
We can always be sure that gutturals affect vowels.
They don't like to take the dagesh.
Here it's actually going to be something a little bit different. Let's work with, gosh, I really want to start with the answer and work backwards, but I'm not sure if I can do that. Let's look for a binyan that has an O vowel right there. That one doesn't. 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 That one does. See the
That
O
was my.
in the
That's
standard.
how I did it.
Exactly. It's a standard yiktol, and we know that primarily because of the O vowel, and secondarily because we would have expected a chirik right there with a shva on the ayin. Oh, gutturals don't like shvas. They don't.
And they don't like dageshes either.
They don't like the gesh. Gutturals often affect vowels. That's what's happening here. So it turns out that what we call yiktol was originally called yak tul with an original ah vowel. And it was over time that the ah got dropped to a shva. Then you get 2 shvas. So Hebrew sticks a chirik in there. When a guttural shows up, it actually preserves the more original vowel of ah. Isn't that just fancy? Ya'ah allows the ayin to avoid having a shva on it, and it preserves the more original yiktol vowel of yak tol.
Mm.
Okay, so you have to combine gutturals mess up vowels with the pattern of this word right here. So there's our candidate right there. It tells us that it is a simple kal yiktol verb, yavor. So simple, right? Oy vey. Oy vey. Clear screen. There we go. Let's see. Where are we? Yavor shoad melot hayamim asher nazir. Aha! We've already talked about this one. So this will be an easy one, right? What binyan is that?
Call?
Oh,
A call?
Is it? I don't know. Everyone's asking. Call. All right. First things first. Does it have a yiktol prefix letter in the front? Apparently.
it doesn't have the whole end though.
It does not have the holam, but does it have a yiktol prefix letter?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's run with that. If it has a yiktol prefix letter, move that up just a little bit. There we go. So we're working with yazir. Oops. Yazir. There we go. So what binyan in the yiktol column has a patach under the yod?
The
He
Hifil.
hill?
Exactly. The one and only. So we have a
It's a
patach right
causative
there.
damative.
Very good. We have the hefil patach right there. We also get the chirik yod right there, but what's missing? It looks like we have 3 root letters in the pattern, but only 2 here. Where's your third root letter? In the dagesh.
Yes, it's
In
so
the
we should 2 Zs.
So it's actually yan. This is how it should have shown up. Yan zir. Yan zir. The problem is that noon being a weak letter will assimilate when it shows up at the end of a syllable.
So it's inside.
So we don't get to see the noon except for that dagesh, and we're left with yazir, but it is still a yiktol hefil. So causing to be nazar, whatever the root nazar means, separate. What was
Someone
it?
who's dedicated,
Dedicated. Yeah, dedicated. Wasn't that the translation that this translation?
separated, or dedicated.
Mhm. Good. Ladonai, to the Lord. Kadosh yiyeh. There's another one. What binyan? Highly irregular one, but it still has a chirik and a shva right there in the yiktol.
Hefil.
Chirik under the yiktol prefix letter and a shva under the first root letter.
Oh,
It's that one. That's the only one that has chirik and shva in the first 2 letters. It's simple kal. The problem with this verb, though, is that it has a weak third root letter. Here we get to see the first root letter, hey, the second root letter, yod, and the third, oh, that's a vowel. Vowels aren't root letters. Root letters have to be consonants. It was a yod, but Hebrews were lazy, didn't pronounce it, it dropped off. Now we have this vowel representing the letter that dropped off. So these kinds of verbs that had a yod at the end, but that yod dropped off, are called lamed yod verbs. Why? Because lamed is the letter that represents the third root letter in katal. No, I'm saying it wrong. It's pa'al. Pa'al. So lamed represents the third root letter. Remember pei aleph I said from earlier?
yeah.
That represents the first root letter. So ein represents the second root letter.
Mhm.
So suppose you have a verb, and I call that verb ayin vav. Does that mean the second root letter will be a vav? Just looking at this right here, ayin vav. Ayin is the second root letter, and we're saying that the second root letter is a vav. So let's look at an example of an ayin vav. How about bo? Is the second root letter a vav? It is. What about shuv? That's another example. Or kum. All of those are what are called ayin vav. So we use this convention to mark what irregular letters the verb may have. Is God's name an ayin vav verb? There's the yiktol prefix. There's the first root letter. There's the second. The third is a missing yod.
So
Yeah.
Shin Vav, that is still considered an Ayin Vav if you were to look at that by itself.
It does have vav it historically had a vav as its second root letter, but at some point the vav got switched to a yod. We get to see the exact same thing happen with the verb chaya. which means he lived, right? Chaya, chai, chayim has to do with life. What is Eve's name in the Bible?
Avara.
Hala.
Hava.
Chava.
Hava.
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 Where did the vav come from? It's more original. This was another original second root letter vav that turned into yod, just like the verb haya. They both originally had a vav. There are about 5 places in the Hebrew Bible that preserve this vav in the root to be, and it's also preserved in Aramaic. So God's name comes from this verb, haya, to be. Yod he vav he means something like he is or will be or or has always been or something like that.
Hmm.
Let's see. Ooh, this one is going to be a hard one to place. What binyan is this one? Gadel.
The PL?
Too easy. Which form of PL? So PL is, PL is all of this. So which form is it?
It's going to be an imperative of some sort, or an infinite construct.
Let's do this right here. PL. I'll use that right there. See if that'll help us out. Okay. So which of those has the pattern of Gadel?
The one underneath infinite construct and absolute infinite infinitive.
Absolutely. This does. Right there. Katel. Gadel. Could it be anything else besides this right here? Well, it can't be a participle because that would have a mem as the prefix. It can't be a yiktol because there's no yiktol prefix. It can't be a katal because there's no chirik right there. Certainly not a vayiktol or vekatal. How do you make imperatives?
With difficulty.
With difficulty. I like that answer. It says here to make the imperative, the command form, you basically remove the tav from the second person yiktol form. So we're going to take this yiktol form, and instead of yod, it has to be a tav if it's second person, right? All the second person forms have a tav at the beginning. Where? Right? Ooh, it's down here. Can I? It's going to mess it up, isn't it? Oh, it's not. Cool. So all our second person forms start with a tav, don't they?
Okay.
So in order to make the imperative, the command form, we're going to take that tav off, and whatever's left is the imperative. So if we have this form right here, tigadel, I'll go ahead and write that in, tigadel, and now we make the imperative by lopping that off, and we're left with the same thing. So ladies and gentlemen, this could also be an imperative form right here. But let's check the context. Does it fit the context? To grow. That doesn't fit the context. We're not commanding someone to do something. So no, it fits the context to call it an infinitive. And that's precisely what it is. It's a PL infinitive. What's supposed to grow? Pera se'ar rosho. Is that a 3-word construct chain?
Yes.
Of course, absolutely. Pera, it's calling the locks or the what do you call that? Not the peyote,
The
really.
curls. The curls.
The curls. I'm not sure that's all it is, though. I thought it was the entire head of hair. It's not the peyote. So I'm not quite sure what the pera means. It's not a word that I use regularly. but the locks of the hair of his head. Maybe, back then they probably had dreads more often. Maybe that's what it's referring to. So basically, the locks of his hair, don't cut them until the vow is over. Kol yemei
All of us Jews have that. We got the Mediterranean here. What are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
You do the threats,
Let's see.
Sorry.
All right. Who wants to read this?
I'll do it since I
Go
have
ahead,
to
Tim.
leave in minutes.
Okay.
All right. Kal ime hazivro ladanai al nefesh met lo yavo.
Kol yemei haziro ladonai al nefesh met lo yavo. It's interesting that I just noticed something interesting. I'll share it here in a bit. Kol yemei haziro, there's a 3-word construct chain, all the days of. Isn't this a he feel?
Yeah.
Hey with a patach, but there's a pronominal suffix at the end. What kind of a verb takes a pronominal suffix?
Ufo?
Well, actually, you can add a pronominal suffix to almost anything, I suppose, now that I think about it. What about infinitives?
An infinitive construct.
Infinitive construct. So, hey with patach, that would put us he feel. Infinitive construct would put us, right there. There it is. Haktil hazir. Only thing missing is a nun right there, hanzir, but that's gone, so we understand it. And then the O means it's his causing of being dedicated or separate. Al nefesh, question, nefesh, masculine or feminine?
Masculine.
It's masculine,
Feminine.
is it not?
Feminine. Feminine.
Your soul.
Most
Or
of
is
the
it
time,
feminine?
most of the time in the Bible, it is feminine. It is an irregular feminine. But look at that. What gender is this?
Feminine.
Mm,
The root is mut.
Mot, which means
The-
dead.
It is a state of being verb, so it should have had the pattern ae, but this mawit simplifies simply into met. It's easier to say. This is a masculine singular form. What would be the feminine?
Meta.
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 So we have a problem. This is supposed to be feminine, but that's masculine. What gives? We have a couple of options to help solve this problem. One, someone just got the gender wrong. It looks like a masculine, so they put a masculine adjective on it. It's actually a participle, but whatever. They thought this was masculine, so they put a masculine verb next to it. Option 2, we're looking at the book of Numbers. Thousands of years before Mater Lectionis letters were invented. Couldn't this be the word meta with no hey at the end? So which one is
Could
it?
be.
We'll never know. But there are options here. There are options. Would we rather say that Moses didn't know Nephesh was masculine, was feminine, or would we rather say that a Masoretic scribe forgot to insert a hey? Well, probably not.
Masoretic scribe forgot to insert a hey.
Probably not. Actually, no. Now that I think of it, a Masoretic scribe would not insert a hey. That would have been done by someone further back, maybe Ezra, or someone during the time of Hezekiah, something like that. So one of the scribes probably forgot to insert a hey. All right. Hey, what can you do?
Jared,
Yavo. Yes.
Jared, I
question.
just have one quick
Yes.
question. Why do they translate the word body as nefesh when it's soul?
Right, because the word nephesh has has been all over the board. There's a well, I guess can't mention that. Nephesh originally comes from linshom, which is to breathe. The nephesh is probably originally the throat. In fact, there's a place in the Bible. I don't know if it's Job. I think it was in Job, maybe, where nephesh is used to talk about. Oh, it had to do with Sheol swallowing up the dead. Maybe it was in the Psalms or Proverbs or something. But anyway, it uses the word nephesh and it puts it in parallel with swallowing. So nephesh is originally a throat, which makes sense because linshom is to breathe, and you breathe through your,
Throat.
let's just call it a throat. Exactly. And then over time, that word comes to represent any animate object. So animals, people. Over time, it takes on a
So
little bit
it's like
more
a
of
living
spiritual.
being.
Well, yeah, but it continues to change all the way throughout the biblical text. I mean, words change meanings over time. And in the Bible, we can see how this word changed meaning throughout the 1500 years of the span of time that the Bible was written. So we get to see it going from breathing thing to living thing to any kind of body. Here it's talking about a nefesh met, which is kind of ironic because nefesh means breathing thing, but bet met means died, so it's a dead living thing.
A dead body.
That's the point. It's just that it's ironic that nefesh originally was something breathing, and now it comes to mean simply a body, even a dead one. Then later on, it comes to mean even, spirit or the non-physical part of someone's being. So nefesh really has a whole kaleidoscope of different meanings. But originally,
Very
something
interesting.
like throat.
Well, if you would breathe
But-
through your throat, whether you breathe through your nose or your mouth, it still ultimately gets to your lungs through your throat.
That's correct. But to
So-
see
Well, the
but to see how
yeah.
nefesh has changed over time is what I'm trying to highlight.
I think it.
Yeah,
I
and they
think
say-
it basically means that it's highlighting the point that our spirit and soul will continue to live. I mean, because man lives by the breath of God being breathed into Adam. So I think it's tying that in somehow.
Were you saying, Nadiva?
Oh, I was going to say how galon is throat in modern Hebrew.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's right.
totally different root, but
Mhm.
and lungs wouldn't be lung either because that's what it is. What's the root come from?
What's the
what
root
other word is related to?
to nefesh?
Yeah,
Ooh.
was curious.
Okay, so if the theory is correct that nafash actually comes from nasham, and we got a swapping of these letters and then a swapping of bilabial letters, pei with mem,
Oh,
then linshom, neshama, would also be related to nefesh, which was probably originally nemesh. And this mem would have turned into a pei because mem, pe, they're both bilabials. We do get to see
Okay.
examples of that happening. So
fascinating. Okay.
fascinating
Yeah.
stuff. And then the verb here, yavo, has a yictol prefix letter. He shall bo, the root is bet vav aleph, he shall come. So he shall not come near to a nefesh met or metta.
Technically a dead body.
Mm-hmm. All right. Would anyone like to read this one?
Gotta go, gang. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one, Tim. Le'aviv, to his
Lemon.
father, ule'imo,
Lemon.
and to his mother, le'achiv, to his brother, ule'achoto, and to his achot, sister. Is it sister or sisters? Well, it says sister right there. But since when did we put ot?
I think
Miss-
he means
I think it
it's
sounds like
missing an
sisters.
S. Sounds like sisters.
What's the root of the
Yeah.
word brother?
That is in a construct chain.
It is. What's the root? What is it? What is the
Avim. No, Achim.
Aviv. Ach.
Other.
Ach.
we know the
Okay.
word as ach in the absolute form.
Ach.
But here in the construct form, there's an extra yod added. Why?
Yeah. Because it was plural.
It's plural.
Uh-huh.
Achim.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
What if the root was originally achu and it turned, in Hebrew, turning vavs into yods, turned this into achi,
Oh,
and then got lazy and dropped off the yod? That means whenever you add a construct, whenever you add a pronominal suffix to it, the original yod comes back. But over here, in the word achot, we have the original aleph chet vav with a feminine tav at the end. Achot,
Achat. Which means sister, doesn't it?
which means sister. How would you then say sisters? Well, whenever you make it feminine plural, you're supposed to add a vav tav to the end of whatever the root is, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Except this one reverts to yod. Achiot.
Achiot.
Achiot. Or achayot, yeah. Achiot. So in this word, the reason we're getting an O vowel there is because of an original vav of the root.
Oh.
And then the tav is the feminine tav, the original feminine tav before most of them fell off. Like when we see the word, ahava,
Yes.
we see this kamatz at the end, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
This is what's left after the final T went silent, much like it did in French.
Yeah.
This should have been originally ahava, but we were lazy and we didn't pronounce the T at the end. So it turned into ahava. But in some words, we still get to see the feminine tav, like ahot or emet, or omeret, like all those participles. You get to see the tav at the end. Tav was the original marker of the feminine, but in many places it dropped out, and all we have is a kamatse left. Lo yitama. Lo yitama. What binyan is this?
Yeah.
Yiktal.
I see the dagesh here in the tet, and I see the chirik right here. So the first thing I think is that this is a nifal.
Nifal, I think.
But we have a problem. There's also a dagesh here. And in nifal, that should have a kamatz. So what binyan are we looking at here? It looks like a hybrid of nifal and PL. I genuinely want to know. Let's go over to Numbers. Where is it? Numbers chapter 6. See if I can find it. Oh, did I pass it already?
There it is.
Limo Yitama. There we go. I'm going to go over to here, click on that. What?
Hippo.
Oh my gosh, I should have known.
The third masculine singular.
This is a hitpael. Where's the tav of hitpael? Here, let's look at that chart again. Hitpael is
It's probably missing.
it's most certainly missing. So in hitpael, come back. Where are you? There you go. In hitpael, in the yiktol, we expect there to be a yit prefix.
Yeah.
And then the three root letters. But what happened in this example? The tav is missing. Wonder why.
Has it just been due to writing? The tav has taken on the sound of the written text.
It was assimilated.
Yeah, it was assimilated. So here, let me show you another example. If we have
that's what I was trying to say. Or the orthography has taken with the text has been taken into the tav.
exactly, the tet and the tav are pronounced so closely together, and in fact, in modern Hebrew, they are precisely the same. But they're pronounced so close together that one assimilates into the other. We get to see this a number of different places. Think about the number ahat. The number ahat, which means one, the number ahat actually comes from echad. It's the number echad with a tav at the end. The dalet and the tav are pronounced so close together that they actually assimilate one into the other, and all we're left with is ahat instead of achadet. Same thing happens with, like for example, natanu. This is the root natan, to give, with a new suffix. We did it. So we gave is natanu. Wait, aren't there supposed to be two nuns? One assimilated into the other.
That's why it has the strong dagesh in it.
That's why it has the strong dagesh in it. And one last example. How about the root shavat? Shavat means to cease, like Shabbat is the day of cease. Exactly. So what if you or I, doesn't really matter who, did the action of ceasing? It would be shavati.
Shavati.
I ceased, shavati. Wait, where are the two tavs? They collapsed into each other.
Yep.
Okay, so the same thing apparently has happened here. Yit tameh has become yittameh. It's a hitpael, a yiktol hitpael. Fascinating. I should have been able to identify that, and I didn't. I feel so defeated. I feel unclean. Yittame. No. Yittama. Here we get a kamatz at the end. Why? Probably because of the final aleph. Lahem, to them, b'motam. So only for his father, mother, brother, sister. Wait a second. He shall not make himself unclean for those who are closest to him when they die, because the consecration of God is upon his head. Well, bummer. You think about, even the high priest got to mourn when his close family members died, but apparently the Nazir cannot. Ki, because Nezer, consecration, Elohav, of his God, al Rosho. He can't come near a dead body. Kol Yemei Nizro, all the days of his separation. Kadosh hu, holy is he, Ladonai. Towards, would you all like to get to the Aaronic blessing? I wanted to fast forward at some point to the Aaronic blessing. Any comments or questions at this point?
Yes, that's good.
All right, let me see where that is. It should be in 20. Zot Torat Nazir. Where are
What
you?
separation is this talking about, Jared?
The separation is the separation of a Nazarite. He's separate
For a
because
period
of
of time
for a
or
period of time for a specific purpose. So,
Okay.
for example, anyone could make a Nazarite vow. Exactly why someone would do that is a little bit ambiguous. But if it's like, what, I want to dedicate myself to the Lord for doing this, that, or the other goal, then I could take a Nazarite vow, but then I would need to go to the temple in order to finish the vow. And currently there's no
Fulfill it.
temple.
Right.
So technically, if anyone takes a Nazarite vow when there's no temple, how are you going to ever end your Nazarite vow?
They can't fulfill it. Yeah.
It means you'll have to be a lifelong Nazarite. Not saying it's a bad thing. It's just a big commitment. All right, let me see if I can find towards the end of this chapter. Hey, where is it? Zot Torah Nazir.
I think
Here it
that's
is. I think this is the beginning of it right here. Yeah. All right. Who would like to read?
Could I give it a
Uh,
shot?
Yeah, of course. Go ahead and give it a shot.
I'm not very good at this, so
Okay,
Um,
well, then you're in the perfect place.
Daber
Mhm.
el Aaron ve'el banav lemor ko te varhu
Mhm.
varhu et beni Israel amor lechem
Mhm. Good.
lachem.
Lahem. Very good. This has a tzere right there. How do you read this word?
With difficulty now. Beni.
Very good. B'nai. That's it. All right.
Okay.
You read very well. Daber el Aharon ve'el banav lemor. Ko tevarechu et b'nai Yisrael amor lahem. So this is the build up to the Aaronic blessing, and here it is. It begins. Eileen, do you want to begin?
Baruch Adonai Vayishmaru.
This is the root, the same root as Baruch, but here it's in the active Yivarechecha.
Oh, Yivarechecha Adonai V'yishmerecha.
V'yishmerecha. Very good. So these
Hey.
have pa suffixes that say they are to be done to you, Israel. Yod prefix says that it is an incompleted action, probably some sort of a jussive, which says let it be, meaning let the Lord or may the Lord bless you. He's the subject. May the Lord bless you. V'yishmerecha, and may he shamar, guard or keep you. Okay, here's the next bit. Who wants to read? Adrian, do you
Yes.
want to read it all?
I e Eva
Yeah, yeah, er.
Oh, I don't know. Okay. Panu
Panav.
Panav. Okay. Eli
Elecha.
Elecha. Okay. Ba or Behenek. Behenek.
Vichuneka. Vichuneka.
Okay, I didn't say that.
This is an interesting phenomenon to see a strong dagesh in the last letter of a word. There is a good explanation for it. It's a little bit advanced, but we'll probably get to it here in a second. Ya'er comes from the same root as or, light.
Yeah.
Right? Aleph Vav Resh, that's light. Here, it's in the Hef eel. So we would have expected it to be something like, if it were a completely normal verb, it should show up something like this. Ya'wir. Ya'wir. Yeah, well, the problem is
Ya'wir.
that, exactly, but here's the thing. Aleph isn't going to take a shva, and the diphthong created by the Vav Chirik Yod is going to simplify. So because Aleph won't take the shva, it's going to quiesce at the end of a syllable, which lengthens the preceding vowel here. So here is ya, and then alir turns into air. Ya air. May he cause light. May he cause light. May he cause to shine. That is the Lord. Panav, cause to shine.
Panav
Cause what to shine?
alecha.
His face, exactly. His face, elecha, upon or to you. Vihuneka,
Neka.
there's your yiktol yod. The root is chanan, chen, to be gracious. And let's see, chen, vihuneka, yichun. I'm having trouble here. Why does that look more like a pu'al? Vihuneka. No, vichonen. That's what it is. So it should have a cholam there because it's a special binyan. Got it. The ka at the end, we understand the cha refers to you, and usually that kamatz will be higher, like that. That fact that it's sitting low here is interesting. But the reason it's low is because of that dagesh. Okay, why is the dagesh there? It's because there's an extra noon shoved into here called an energic noon, which makes the verb more certain. So rather than translating this as, and may he be gracious to you, I would rather translate this, and may he certainly be gracious to you. All because of that dot right there and the energic noon that it represents.
Yay.
All right, who's going to read next? Next part of the blessing? The last part of the blessing.
Can I read it?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeshev, Yisha,
Yisa.
Adonai,
Mhm.
Isa, Adonai, Penav, Elecha, Ve'asem, Lecha, Shalom.
Very good. Yisa Adonai Panav
Panav alecha.
Elecha V'yasem
Yasem lecha shalom.
Shalom. Yisa. What is the root of Yisa? Looks like a yiktol prefix letter. Looks like something's missing.
Sounds like the word nisi to me a little bit.
Nisi. Nisi is let's see, yes. I think it has a dagesh right there. Nisi comes from the absolute form nes, which means miracle. Nisi is my miracle, but it has a samech instead of a sin.
Oh,
Here we have a sin and we have an aleph, but it looks like a dagesh has something missing. What's missing in front?
a vav
Well,
or
it's a, yeah,
a
noon.
nun.
Adon.
Anytime you see a missing letter, the first thing to suspect is a noon. But there are other explanations, but the vast majority of the time it's a noon.
Nasso.
Nasa is to lift, bear, or carry. Think of NASA lifting up the
The rockets.
exactly, the rockets. And so here we have a yisa with a yod prefix in front of it. He will bear or let him bear, may he bear or lift. Who? The Lord. Lift what? Bear what? Panav,
Discount.
his face.
His face.
His face, literally his face, but here the English wants to call it his countenance. Okay, fine. Elecha, upon you. Or to you or upon you. V'yasem. All right, here we only get 2 root letters. We know there's a sin. We know there's a mem. What's missing? Well, there's no
A
dagesh.
noon.
There's no dagesh. If the noon is
There's no dagesh,
missing, there should be a dagesh. So if you happen to see something went missing and there's no dagesh, suspect either a vav or a yod. Here it's a yod. Sim. Sim, sim, sim shalom. Sim is to put or place. And there's your yiktol yod. V'yasem, and may he put or place. Lecha, for you. Shalom, peace.
Mm.
This blessing is traditionally sung by a Kohen, if possible, at the end of a service in a synagogue. The tune goes something like this: Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka, Yisa Adonai panav elecha, v'yasem lecha shalom. Something like that. All right. Who would like to read next? I have a few more minutes. If you want to read any more, go ahead. All right. I'll read. Visamu, and they should place et shmi. This is God speaking, my name. Al b'nei, upon the sons, Yisrael of Israel. Va'ani, and I, avarachem. Now, I wish they really would have pointed out that this right here is a pronominal suffix, them. Aleph says, I will, berech, bless them. I will bless them. Holy moly, that's a long verse. Anyone want a long verse? Okay. Vayhi b'yom kalot Moshe lehakim et hamishkan vayimshach oto vaykadesh oto ve'et kol kelav ve'et hamizbeach ve'et kol kelav vayimshachem vaykadesh otam. Vayehi, and it was, and it came to pass. Is this a vayiktol form? How do you know?
Because it's starting the
It starts with a vav.
sentence. It's starting the
Doesn't it?
sentence.
It's starting the
And it's
sentence with a
passive.
vav.
Good. So it's starting a sentence. It has a vav patach. The only thing that's missing is vayiktols are supposed to have a dagesh right there. Vav patach dagesh. But letters with a
It's
shva,
got the shwa underneath it, so you don't get a dagesh.
usually not. Correct. Here we get a dagesh, but there's no shva. Here we don't get a dagesh because there is a shva. Here we, again, same as that, same as that. Okay, so apparently every time there's a shva, we don't get the dagesh. Bummer. Still a vayiktol. What's the root?
The root is
Yod
vay.
Hey.
If it's a vayiktol, then that means you need a yiktol prefix letter here. So where's the root? Hey,
Hi.
Hey,
Yod,
Yod,
something.
Nun,
There's no dagesh there.
Ooh,
Vav.
So expect a Yod or a Vav. Here it's a Yod.
another
nothing-
Yod.
Hey, this is a very, very common verb, right? Haya. He was. This hey at the
Ah.
end tells you that there's a missing Yod. But in those vayiktols, the verb likes to apocopate. It likes to be shorter, so that hey goes missing. So we get no Yod, we even get no hey. And it came to pass, B'yom Kalot Moshe, on the day of the full, how do I say this?
Of all.
Finishing of? Kind of, yeah. So Kalot is from Kaf Lamed
Kol.
Yod, which is essentially the same root as Kaf Vav Lamed, to be finished, to be full, to be ended. So here it's talking about finishing the setting up of the tabernacle. So when Moses finished lehakim, to set up, what's the root of lehakim? There's le at the beginning, so it's probably an infinitive. There's ha, granted with a kamatz, because there's a root letter missing. All we see is the first and third. It's a hefil, infinitive. How about kum? To arise. In the hefil, it's causing something to rise. So it's translated as establishing or setting up something, setting up the mishkan. Shachen means to dwell. So the mishkan is the dwelling place.
Place.
Exactly. Vayim shach, who knows the root mashach?
To anoint.
It's the same root as Mashiach. Mashach is to anoint. Mashiach is the anointed one or the anointable one, something like that. He anointed Oto, the tabernacle. Vaikadesh. What binyan is Vaikadesh?
Vayektol.
Good, that's the form. It's a Vayiktol form. What binyan is it, though? Kal, Piel, Hefil, Nifal.
It's a passive.
Oh, I would disagree with you there.
All right, sorry.
It's all right.
The English translations, it is consecrated, but simply it is a red herring.
Yeah, it's probably a rhetoric is in Vaikadesh. It should be, and then he consecrated it, the tabernacle. So the translation here is not doing us any favors. Let's look at the vowel pattern. Shva, patach, dagesh. That's what we should be looking for in a yiktol form. Shva, patach, dagesh in the yiktol. What has a shva, patach, dagesh?
Hippato.
Which one?
Hippato.
Hitpael?
It says patatakesh.
Let's see. Okay, good. So have a look here. When it has a 1, it means the first root letter should have patach. There's your patach. And then 2 would be the second root letter with a dagesh. Okay, that's good, but we also had a shva under the yiktol prefix letter. So where's the shva under the yiktol prefix letter? It's actually right here. Is your shva?
A
patach?
PO.
Yes, so it is. It's a PL. Vai Kadesh. So the root here, Kadesh, means to be separate
Set apart.
yeah, set apart, exactly. So if someone is kadesh, they are set apart. If you put it into the PL, then you are making something kadesh, set apart. That's the verb of consecrating. So he made the tabernacle set apart. He consecrated it. What else? Ve'et kol kelav. This is the word kli, where the yod is, again, part of the root.
Yeah.
And then the vav is added to the root. Kelav is instruments or vessels. Ve'et hamizbeach. Zavach is to slaughter. So what is a mizbeach? It's a slaughter place. It's an altar. Ve'et kol kelav, and all of its instruments or vessels. So he consecrated all of this stuff. Vayim shachem. There's that mashach again, and he anointed them, all the stuff. Vayikadesh otam, and he consecrated them. All right. Well, that was a good session. We've got, let's see. If anybody would like to help support Hungry for Hebrew, this is how you can do it. Otherwise, I'll see you next week for the next parasha. Until then, lehitraot.
Sarah, thank you so much. This
Absolutely.
is amazing.
Thanks, Jared.
Thank you for joining. See you all
Thank
next
you.
week.
Thank you. Take care.
Shalom.